Today I want to talk about something pretty strange about Sweden and Scandinavia as a whole. In Sweden, you're not supposed to think that you're anything special. You're not supposed to show off or boast about your accomplishments. You're supposed to fit in and not stand out in any way. Today I want to talk about Jantelagen, the Law of Jante. You might be wondering why I'm recording this video at DreamHack, one of the biggest gaming conventions in the world. This is a massive gaming expo in Sweden, and it should be the direct opposite of Jantelagen. It's loud, it's bombastic, and it's full of people competing to be the very best. It's all gonna make sense later, I promise. Or at least I hope so. But first, let's talk a bit more about what Jantelagen, the Law of Jante, is. Jantelagen is sometimes compared to the tall poppy syndrome in English, where successful people are metaphorically cut down once they get too big. Basically, people who boast about their achievements need to be brought down to earth. Jantelagen is similar, but has a bigger focus on social norms and that you yourself is responsible for ensuring that you never grow too big. It's a code of conduct in Scandinavia that's intended to describe group behavior and not just punish boastful people, even if that's also part of it. It governs everything from how you dress and how you act, to which house and which car you buy. You don't want to be that guy who buys a green Cybertruck. That's not Swedish at all. Jantelagen is often ridiculed, but some people believe that it lies at the root of why Scandinavia is ranked so high on global happiness. Scandinavia is very homogeneous, and maybe that equality leads to a happier life. But there are also problems with Jantelagen. Some people hate Jantelagen because it makes it difficult to fit in and still express your individuality. People outside of the standard Swedish mold have a really hard time being accepted by society here. Jantelagen wants you to dress like everyone else, act like everyone else, and have the same dreams as everyone else. And that's definitely something many people don't like. But there might be even worse consequences than that. Some journalists have linked Jantelagen with the high suicide rates of Scandinavia. And it might also be the cause of a high rate of imposter syndrome in Sweden. But I'll get back to that later. First, let's talk about the history of Jantelagen. Swedes often talk about Jantelagen, but it actually comes from Norway and Denmark, sort of. It was first mentioned in the book En flykting korsar sitt spår from 1933. A fugitive covers his tracks. It was written by a Norwegian author called Aksel Sandemose, who grew up on Jylland in Denmark. In the book, he describes the small town of Jante and a set of rules that you have to abide by in that town. Those rules are roughly translated: don't believe that you're anything special. Don't believe that you're as good as us. Don't believe that you're smarter than us. Don't believe that you're better than us. Don't believe that you know more than us. Don't believe that you're superior to us. Don't believe that you're good for anything. Don't laugh at us. Don't believe that anyone cares about you. And don't believe that you can teach us anything. It feels a bit weird to say that out loud here. I hope no one is listening. Anyway, charming set of rules, right? Well, I'm sure that we can all think of someone who thinks like that, at least to some degree. Aksel, the author, took inspiration from the town of Nykøbing in Denmark when he wrote the book, but there are many places all over Scandinavia that are quite similar to it. And that's most likely why Jantelagen, the Law of Jante, became so popular. It's a form of self-deprecating humor. People realize that he actually does have a point. People behave a bit like that in Scandinavia. At first, the mentality was ascribed to small towns and rural areas, but over time, people started to identify it as a general Scandinavian trait. Jantelagen, as people use the term today, isn't quite as ridiculous as in the original book. Those 10 rules are exaggerated, and no one actually thinks like that today. I hope. But there's a kernel of truth hidden there. Most people these days summarize Jantelagen with just the very first of the laws of Jante. Don't believe that you're anything special. If you ask a random Scandinavian to explain Jantelagen in just one sentence, that's most likely what you'll hear. And that actually brings me to the reason why I'm recording this video at DreamHack. Let's talk about the Swedish duality between individualism and Jantelagen. In the beginning of the video, I mentioned that there's a reason that I'm recording this at DreamHack. One reason is that this is a perfect illustration of the duality of Sweden. Sweden is a very individualistic country, despite a strong focus on fitting in and following the Law of Jante. Individual achievements are appreciated and applauded, you're just not supposed to boast about them. There's been a large number of successful Swedes, especially when it comes to technology and music. And games. Sweden has a lot of successful game developers, as well as a lot of successful gamers. CSGO was dominated by Swedish teams for a while, and there's also been some good Valorant players, for example, even though esports is still not recognized as an official sport in Sweden. And as I'm sure you know, there's a lot of games that come from Sweden. Battlefield, Minecraft, Candy Crush, sorry for that one, and many more. It's almost like Sweden is producing talent despite being held back by Jantelagen. Or possibly because of it. Or maybe Jantelagen isn't really a thing anymore. Some people claim that Jantelagen isn't relevant anymore because Sweden allows for individualism these days. DreamHack would be a perfect example of that. There's tons of people showing lots of ambition and individualism here. But DreamHack isn't really a new thing. It's been running for 30 years now, and it was started by a group of creative and ambitious Swedes. And there's been decades and centuries of Swedish businessmen, artists, and inventors before that. So I don't think that individualism is proof that Jantelagen is dead these days. And it could even be that Swedes who manage to push away from the group mentality end up even more creative and individualistic. But that's just a hypothesis, and I have nothing to support it with. It would explain why Sweden has so many gamers and game developers and musicians and other skilled people though. But another reason that I wanted to talk about Jantelagen at DreamHack is that I don't really know what I'm doing here. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, that's because of the imposter syndrome. I'm just a crappy little YouTuber, but DreamHack still let me come here as a content creator. I don't have tons of subscribers. I don't have a Twitch stream. I'm not very popular. But somehow I'm still here, so I decided to reflect on that a bit. One possibility is that DreamHack made a mistake and I really shouldn't be here. That's my spontaneous thought when I look at all the big streamers with all their adoring fans. Another possibility is that my crappy little YouTube channel isn't really as crappy as I thought. That's where the imposter syndrome comes in. I don't really believe that I deserve to be a content creator here. That's most likely true. But if it isn't true, then it's an example of the imposter syndrome, where you feel like a fake and that people will discover it at any time. And the imposter syndrome goes hand in hand with Jantelagen. I'm raised to think that I'm not special, and even if I achieve something, I'm conditioned to think that anyone could do it. Up to 80% of people in Sweden suffer from imposter syndrome. I recently had dinner with a friend who's a very skilled software developer, and even after 20 years, he still suffers from it. Doctors, engineers, lawyers, teachers. If you look closely enough at any Swede, then you're likely to find someone suffering from imposter syndrome. And I think that it's closely related to Jantelagen. Unfortunately, I don't have any statistics for how many people suffer from imposter syndrome in the Nordics compared to the rest of the world. But it wouldn't surprise me if it's quite high. Sweden is full of creative and ambitious people, and it's also full of people who deep down feel like they're just a fraud. Maybe, just maybe, Jantelagen is the cause for both of these things. Jantelagen has both positive and negative sides. It could be the reason why Scandinavia is so happy, for example. But it could also be the cause of a lot of mental suffering. And maybe it's already fading away. Maybe it's not relevant at all these days. I don't think so personally. I think it's an integral part of Scandinavian and Nordic mentality. Jantelagen isn't seen as a positive thing in Sweden, Norway or Denmark. The word is used to describe all the negative aspects of it. But I don't think that we can run away from it, and I don't think that it's going away anytime soon. I think that we're stuck with Jantelagen one way or another. So if you come to Sweden and you want to fit in, then you'd better make sure that you don't think that you're anything special. And that's about it. That was a video about Jantelagen at DreamHack. I hope you found it interesting. Like and subscribe, but most importantly, have a great day.